What's going on, everyone? The market was pretty choppy and a little bit boring today, and it's getting to the point where it's going to have to pick a direction soon as the volatility index is starting to heat up. In today's video, we're going to talk about what's happening with the market right now, how it's secretly heating up behind the scenes, and how there is a record $6 trillion worth of money just sitting on the sidelines. We also have a bunch of great setups for tomorrow, so stick with us all the way to the end. And Tom, let's get right into it.
Yeah, that market was actually, I would say, pretty negative overall today. The SPY closed down negative 0.56%, a little bit more than average, actually, over the past year. So that's a good sign. And the daily candle was green because from open to close, with that recovery end of day, it moved up. But it actually ran down quite a bit, bounced off this 470 support, and started running back. And with that move down, specifically in the middle of the day, there was some pretty good price action to be played to the downside right there. And there were quite a bit of stocks that were actually falling off. Mike, I know that the VIX, that's a really fun stock. Lately, we've been talking about it. It was up 7% today, way more than its average percent rise, which is only 5.28%. So, we're seeing the market start to dip down a little bit. We're seeing that VIX start to heat up. And I feel like if the SPY starts to really blow past this recent low, like right around 466, 467, I think we could see a much larger sell-off start to come into around 460, maybe even into the 450 range. So we have to be very careful. We're right at all-time highs. We're starting to reject, and the market's starting to heat up a little bit here.
Exactly. So looking at the market right now, there are one of two things that is going to happen, in my opinion. The first potential route is that the volatility index continues to, what I'll say, blast to the upside. And if that happens, the market will most likely pull back in a pretty strong way. Whenever you see the volatility index rise in a rapid way very quickly, it shows that, there's fear just overtaking the market, and people, protect themselves and, sell out of things, right? That's how the VIX works. It shows that volatility is increasing, and it shows that, market makers literally expect more volatility out of the market. And almost every single time the VIX shoots up in a major way, the market tanks down. The other possible route is if the VIX just slowly fades off, and then the market just continues its path of just slowly grinding higher. I'm rooting for the path where VIX continues to blast higher and the market pulls back, because in my opinion, the market is overextended, and the total risk to reward setup right now, given everything going on around the world geopolitically, as well as how rates are starting to rise. I think that presents a better risk to reward setup for playing the short term of the market in a bearish way, but we'll see what happens. But no matter what, everyone has to keep a very close eye on the volatility index and rates right now. Because if both of these things continue to rise, it will put a whole lot of selling pressure onto the market. So no matter what, pay attention to those two things very closely.
Yeah, and why are they going up? People are kind of getting a little freaked out by those higher inflation numbers that came out a couple weeks ago, right? That's starting to freak a lot of traders out. I know that a lot of investors are starting to see that, and we're actually starting to see the overall percentages for rate cuts in March and May and July and June start to actually go down a little bit. So it looks like they're actually going closer towards pausing in a few of those circumstances. Now, we're going to have to see how this situation plays out, how inflation goes, but it's interesting to see the yields starting to run up the way that they are, and it's not like they're up a ton, but, they are, this is a pretty healthy recovery so far. I wonder how high it will get. Mike, I really like the volatility index right now, and, a lot of people might say, well, hey, how do we trade this? Really, to me, the best thing is UVXY. There's not really too much else out there that follows it directly. I know VXX used to be pretty good. It looks like it's moving with it pretty well right now too, but UVXY, you can really take advantage of that volatility. It was up 5% today, and you can, the options on UVXY are actually pretty enticing as well in the short term. I know that there's been a lot of swing plays in the past that have been really good with UVXY during periods of downtrend. So if we see that market continue down, that momentum keeps on shifting back to the downside, UVXY will be an awesome stock to look at.
No doubt. And another thing we just have to talk about right now is the record $6 trillion worth of money just sitting on the sidelines. So basically, looking at the chart right now, we can see that there's a whole lot of money just sitting on the sidelines right now. And you might ask yourself why that is. And clearly it shows that some people are just, not too optimistic about the market right now, and I can't blame them given that the market is basically at all-time highs and, things aren't all sunshine and rainbows in the world right now. One thing that I thought was very interesting is that if we look at this chart over time, whenever you see periods where the total amount of money on the sidelines shoots up a ton, just like in 2007 and 2008, there is almost always a it's during times when, you should have money on the sidelines. Like, for example, from January of 2008 to January of 2009, there was a whole lot of money sitting on the sidelines. Eventually, as 2009 went on, that money sitting on the sidelines came down. And that shows that all of that money was just buying the dip on a bunch of stocks that were super low priced. We could see almost the same thing during COVID. A bunch of money was just sitting on the sidelines more towards the beginning of 2020. And then it started slowly winding down as people were just buying the dip on everything. What are we seeing right now? We have a bunch of money sitting on the sidelines right now. People are just waiting for that next dip. So I think this is very telling. And, over the past, you could say 2 to 3 major market corrections, this, I guess we'll call indicator has been pretty interesting, at least in my opinion.
And the big thing for me is it looks like that the market does very well as this actually starts to move up initially, like in 07 heading into 08 before the actual crash. This starts to go up quite a bit. It's kind of like Nvidia right now. We're all just waiting for that big pullback and we're all like, hey, is it ever going to finally come, right? I feel like we're kind of waiting for that with this as well. We're just really waiting for that number to finally taper off. And I think we'll see a pretty significant pullback, and if it's not a huge pullback, at least it'll be semi-flat like it was in 21 through 23, where it just kind of went flat for a while. You can see during these periods where the market grows pretty well, it generally is just pretty flat. So that's definitely telling, Mike, and it's just like one of those things where it's just a waiting game now, right? We're just waiting for that spot where the market's starting to fall, and I think we might finally be there right now as it's double topping, and it's not a true double top yet, but it's starting to form. We're failing to break out right now.
Exactly. So the biggest thing for me with this is waiting for, we'll call this sideline money to start to come back in a major way, because that will literally show you that people are, taking their money off the sidelines and they're deploying it into, most likely stocks. So I think we should do a refresh in on this chart in a couple months from now, and I think that'll be pretty telling. But on another note, Tom, for some news today, Apple had 2 pretty big news articles come out that aren't necessarily the best.
Yeah, they're really not. So the first big thing is they actually have an antitrust suit that could come as soon as March. And to me, this was more the negative news today than even the watch news that we're going to talk about in a minute. But looking at this, they're looking at an antitrust lawsuit from the DOJ's antitrust division. And the people that are looking at these, I guess you would say, the antitrust suits, like the FTC, for example, these people have been pursuing cases against Alphabet, Amazon, and Meta already. So I don't know. Maybe Apple's just joining the cool kids club at this point. But either way, though, it's a pretty big deal whenever somebody like Apple faces an antitrust suit like this. And, they've been saying that there's anti-competitive practices going on. They've been sued by Spotify, actually, as well, I believe. And there's just a bunch of different cases where Apple's been hit hard for these things lately.
No doubt. And the watch news from today wasn't too good either.
It wasn't. So, guys, get this. Apple Watches are now banned once again. They were banned. Now they were unbanned. Now they're banned again. So, they've been copying the Massimo, I believe is the way you pronounce their company, Massimo's blood oxygen sensors, and it's been a pretty big deal. So, they have to ban the Series watch the Apple Watch Series 9 and also the Ultra 2. So both of those have the feature, so they're not going to be allowed to sell those anymore. You might still be able to get some from like Walmart or somewhere like that, but definitely going to be a big deal for Apple in the short term. But I'll say this. It's the Series 9, right? Just wait for the Series 10 or the X, right? That's going to be a big watch, I have a feeling.
Yeah, and looking at Apple stock right now, it has been, kind of leading the market to the downside. While we have a lot of other big tech stocks like Nvidia, and you could even say Microsoft, right at their highs, Apple has been pulling back pretty consistently for the past couple of weeks or so. Actually, at this point, a month. So it definitely reflects in the stock price, but at the same time, it's not like Apple is crashing and burning either. It's more so just like a slow fade down.
Yeah, it is, and I see that they actually, in the short term, are kind of bouncing right on this support, very close to this 180 area. So if we watch Apple at 180, that's going to be a big support. If they start to break under that this week, we might start to see more selling pressure, and maybe some of this negative news will start to push it down more too. But I have a feeling that Apple's going to be one of those stocks that really helps the market drop over the next few months. They've been having so much negative news. I just can't even believe their iPhone sales, the way that, they've been falling in their revenue. Man, Mike, it's crazy to even say that their revenue growth hasn't been, all that, right? They're a powerhouse.
Exactly. But yeah, I mean, they're definitely taking at least some short-term hits, which, isn't the end of the world, but definitely it's not the best news either. But for right now, Apple is just a no play for me. If some new news comes out and really brings in that bearish selling pressure, then I would definitely short this one. At the same time, if the price action and sentiment turns around with this one, I would consider longing it. But for the time being, I'm just going to sit on the sidelines with this one. And talking about stocks that are set to have some pretty big movement, we have a couple earnings reports scheduled.
Yeah, we do. So the first one is actually Taiwan Semiconductor's ticker symbol TSM. This is going to be a huge chip stock reporting. It's one of the biggest chip stocks in the world. So keep that in mind. They're up there with the names like AMD and Nvidia. Some people even argue they might even be better, but we'll leave that to the people in the comments. But either way, there's a bunch of regional banks reporting too. KeyBank is reporting, Northern Trust. So there's going to be quite a bit going on, Mike. But at the end of the day, I think Taiwan Semiconductors takes the cake here.
There we go. So keep a close eye on that one for tomorrow. Ticker symbol TSM. Earnings setups, I would say, are best played after the report. And at this point, it's kind of too late anyways because they are set to report tomorrow before open. But, if the earnings really shocks the crowd, you can say, then there's nothing wrong with riding that imbalance of buying or selling pressure. But at the same time, earning setups are best played as continuation moves, in my opinion. So a lot of times you'll see a stock report earnings, and if they're good, the stock will continue for multiple days after the report. And at the same time, if they're bad, the stock can sell off for multiple days after the report as well. So keep a close eye on this one for tomorrow. And then, Tom, on the economic data side of things, it's a pretty dry day, which isn't a bad thing.
Yeah, it really is. So tomorrow we just have building permits, housing starts. Bostic's going to be speaking. There is a couple, Fed speakers tomorrow. Like Bostic is speaking a couple different times, but that's really the big concern lately because, today a couple Fed speakers said some negative stuff. But besides that, that's it for tomorrow. Then Friday we have Michigan consumer sentiment, which could be pretty big if it surprises. But other than that, Mike, not too much on this side of things. And I'm really glad because it lets us focus on that SPY price action and we don't have to worry about too many surprises here.
Exactly. Well, let's get right into some setups for tomorrow then. One stock I'm watching pretty closely is Meta, and it's to the downside. This stock is pretty overbought, and its uptrend is starting to slow a little bit. It did fall a little bit today, but ended up recovering as the day went on. But the main thing is that this shows that, the buying pressure is definitely weakening. I would love to see Meta break right below the $360 support with some solid momentum. If it can do that, I would definitely short it, and I think it has a decent amount of room to pull back. But again, we need to see a break below 360 with some real movement. We'll say that. We want to see a clear break below support.
Yeah, and it looks like they've been kind of following SPY down the past couple days too. So like if if that overall market keeps moving down the way it is, that should be even better for Meta. With my first play, I'm going with AMD, Mike, and we've talked about 160 on AMD quite a bit the past couple days, and we've been looking at it on Bookmap. And I'll say this, end of day, 160 actually gave out as a pretty big resistance. You can see right here on the Bookmap, we looked at this last night. There was like 200,000, anywhere from like 150 to 200,000 shares stacked up here at any time. Those gave out right in the middle of the day, right here. You can watch it live on Bookmap. You guys can do a whole bunch with this platform, and it shows you right where these sellers and buyers are lining up. But Mike, that was an awesome break today. It happened end of day. I'm definitely going to have AMD on watch tomorrow for a potential run up. I think that there's room to the upside if this break of 160 continues and we see good momentum early on. And I would say at this point, make it break 161. Then I think we could see some great momentum to the upside. But I love looking at that, Mike. We've been watching this for a few days on Bookmap, and it just goes to show the importance of Bookmap there. And we're finally seeing this level break for once.
There we go. All right, another stock I'm watching pretty closely for tomorrow is UVXY. So for those of you who've been paying attention, I've been talking about this stock for a couple of videos now, back to back to back. And UVXY has been moving to the upside in a pretty big way. It had another 5% update today. And, basically volatility is increasing in the market right now, which is a great thing. As the volatility index increases and just, volatility across the board, so does UVXY. This is great for short-term trading, but you don't want to hold it over the long term because it decays and the market normally goes up. But anyways, long story short, I'm watching UVXY to the upside again tomorrow. This one can present some opportunities if the bearish selling pressure comes in strong tomorrow. But I will say this as well. Even though this stock has been performing in a great way over like the past couple days, the price action that we saw in like SPY today in like the second half of the day, like especially leading up to market close, was somewhat bullish. So like in order to potentially trade UVXY tomorrow, you want to make sure that the market is like sinking and like breaking that low of day again with some decent bearish momentum.
Yeah, and it had that big bounce today off that 470 support. I would love to see that support give out over the next couple days, and UVXY will be one hell of a play if that does happen. With my next play, I'm going with a couple stocks here, Mike. Firstly, I wanted to go with Boeing. This stock actually moved up today a little bit, but their woes continue with their terrible news, Mike. I see that Secretary Anthony Blinken, his Boeing 737 had a critical failure and they had to switch planes today. It just seems like every day there's something worse for Boeing. So, light Boeing up in the comments, guys, if you guys hear this. Let me know how you feel about that. But with the next thing, I'm going to talk about DWAC again, DWAC. It had another good day, up 3%. I'm still keeping this one on the radar with that positive news with Trump winning Iowa. And when I say positive for the stock anyways. Great movement here. Love to see it running. And I think there's still opportunity short term with all the volatility that keeps hitting this.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, this stock has been all over the place over the past couple months, and the past week or so has sure been explosive for this one. But just like we said in yesterday's video, this is one of those stocks that you should only be trading if you can handle the heat, because if not, it'll definitely shake you out.
Yeah, it really will. Like, you got to be really careful with this. And I would honestly say it's not a stock that I really like to buy and hold overnight. It's just something where, personally, I just like to trade it for momentum, because whenever you talk about stocks that have daily charts with candles like this, I mean, look at it in the past, this stock. Usually it starts to give out after a couple days. So just keep that in mind.
Sounds good. All right, well, let's get right into the momentum plays for tomorrow. And with today's first one, we have CGC to the upside.
Yeah, CGC, it had a pretty, I would say, like, lackluster day today, but it was a good pullback day for us. If it ends up pulling above 480 tomorrow, watch for a breakout up to 5 or higher. I think that these MJ stocks could see a lot more movement in the short term.
Boom. With the next one, we have the powerhouse NVIDIA but actually to the downside today.
Yeah, downside. I would say upside if it was more around its high here, but it kind of faded off here today. So if it ends up moving down below 557, go ahead and watch it to the downside.
All right, and with the last one, we have TLT for both directions.
Yeah, with yields heating up, TLT started to fall back off again a little bit here in the short term. If they break under 94.50 tomorrow, go ahead and look at puts to the downside. At the same time, if yields start to turn back over and they start to fall again, watch for TLT to move up above 95. I think that we could see that be a good whole dollar breakout level.
Sounds great. So as usual with the momentum plays, these three stocks are only setups tomorrow if they break the levels Tom listed. We have the upside level for calls and we have the downside level for puts. Keep a close eye on these three stocks heading into tomorrow. But it's now about that time for today's big money trade of the day. And we are looking at ticker symbol GOOS. And this is one interesting setup today. So it was around a $1.4 million trade where the big money bought the GOOS 11 strike call options that are set to expire on February 16th of 2024. So this stock has been getting hammered over the past couple of years, and it's now to the point where it's do or die, basically. It is very close to its all-time low, unfortunately, but the big money is, trading these call options with the hope that the stock starts to turn around. Basically, the 11 strike call options are slightly in the money. They have some time to them, and the implied volatility on this stock is getting higher and higher and higher, which basically means the market is telling everyone that this stock is about to move in a big way. This setup isn't my favorite setup in the world, just given the chart and the situation at hand, but it definitely does have potential, and it's definitely pretty suspicious to see a trade this large coming into GOOS with, not too much time, but it's also in the money too, the call option. So very interesting trade nonetheless, and I'll have a close eye on it either way.
Yeah, and apparently this is a company it's a Canadian company that makes winter clothing and stuff. So I found that very interesting, Mike, and I feel like that whenever you zoom out on the chart, it looks pretty awful, right? Like, let's be realistic. Over the past couple years, this stock has been pretty crazy. But whenever we look at it short term, it's so low right now. It's starting to get pretty close to support again, and it had a great day today. If they're looking for like a short-term bounce back up, this could be a great play here going into February. So short-term, it would be awesome to see this like come back up to retest that 13-ish area. I like the play quite a bit, and I'll say this, GOOS, what a ticker, right? Canada Goose Holdings. It's always funny when you have these cooler tickers like that.
Yeah, there we go. But yeah, Tom, for tomorrow, I will say it'll be an exciting day as we have the volatility index creeping up there. The volatility index, or the VIX, is still very low, like nominally speaking, as it's only at, you could say, like 15 or so. And when you zoom out, that's not too high. But when you zoom in, it's starting to rise quicker and quicker, which is a very good thing in terms of short-term trading, because when you see the VIX shoot higher, it makes for just much more powerful and crazy moves in the market, which is phenomenal for short-term trade opportunities. And at the same time, as the VIX gets, you could say, overextended, or as it rises for, weeks to months at a time, that also presents phenomenal, like buy the dip opportunities for some like longer term trades as well. So I would love to see the VIX continue to rise, and we will see.
Yeah, we've seen it rise quite a bit in the past, especially on that big downtrend that recently happened on the SPY back in September. Look at how much the VIX rose, guys. I'm circling it in blue. That is a huge, huge move to the upside. If this is the true start of a good run, we should see VIX get to like 17, 18, 19, maybe even 20 if we get a decent sized pullback in the market. Now, if there's a smaller pullback, maybe like 16, maybe 17, something like that. But with a true pullback, we'll see this thing shoot up quite well. So hopefully it doesn't just chop around down here anymore, Mike. It's been kind of stuck down here for a few months, and I think it's about time to get out. And it's all happening as the SPY is rejecting at its all-time high. I don't know how many times I have to say that, Mike. Mike. I feel like I'm like a broken record talking about this double top.
Yeah, the market's been pretty stagnant for a couple weeks now. So I think that really shows that there's a big shift happening behind the scenes, especially after the giant run-up that the market has had over the past couple of months. We're going to talk a lot more about the current market situation as well as the opportunities that will be presented with VIX currently moving the way it is in tonight's live event. So come join us at 9 p.m. Eastern Time in the StockedUp trading floor. It is a members-only event, so if you do want to join, use that first link in the description down below. And last but not least, I want to give a giant shout-out to today's member of the day, Charlie St. Loud, and he's been doing a great job so far this year growing his account. So huge shout out to you, and keep up the great work. Stay consistent, keep your head up high, and keep grinding. There we go. But again, thank you guys so much for watching, and let's have a great rest of the week in the market.